My name is Celeste. I'm 29 years old, and 3 months ago I stood at my mother's memorial dinner with an insurance statement folded in my pocket and a lie burning a hole straight through my chest. My Aunt Marlene was at the front of the room, holding a microphone, her voice trembling in all the right places. "My sister died with nothing," she said, pressing a tissue to her cheek. "Nothing but a mountain of medical debt and a broken heart. I did everything I could." She paused for effect. The room nodded. Someone whispered, "So brave." I could feel the paper against my hip, thin and creased, the one piece of evidence she never thought I'd find. I didn't know yet how the next 5 minutes would end, but I knew one thing for certain. My aunt was about to learn that some speeches don't deserve applause. If you've ever felt like there was a secret floating through your family that everyone knew but no one would tell you, type "I felt it too" in the comments right now. And drop where you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels tonight. I was 17 when my mother died. Ovarian cancer. 8 months from diagnosis to the end. My father had passed years earlier, so it was just us, me and Mom and Aunt Marlene, who swooped in during the final weeks like a director taking over a play. She handled the hospital paperwork, the funeral arrangements, the bank accounts. "You're too young to carry this," she told me, stroking my hair. "Let me protect you." I was drowning in grief and grateful for the raft, even if it was made of someone else's hands. At the will reading, Marlene told me my mother's estate was essentially nothing. The house was underwater. The savings were depleted by treatments. There was a stack of medical bills she'd generously paid off from her own pocket. I remember sitting in the lawyer's office, numb, nodding, believing every word because the alternative was too exhausting to imagine. For the next 12 years, I worked receptionist, waitress, data entry, anything that would keep the lights on while I tried to build something that looked like a future. I never went to college. I never took a vacation. Every time I scraped together a few $100s in savings, some new emergency would drain it back to zero. Marlene, meanwhile, remodeled her kitchen, bought a new car, posted photos of herself on a cruise ship with the caption, "Finally taking time for me." I told myself it was none of my business. I told myself the ache in my chest was just resentment, and resentment was ugly, and I needed to be grateful. There's a specific, hollow ache that comes from being tolerated instead of loved. I learned to recognize it the way some children learn to recognize hunger. It never really leaves you. But that was before I found the key. 3 months before the memorial, on a Tuesday night at 11:42 p.m., I was cleaning out a closet in my apartment, the last box of my mother's things I'd never had the courage to open. Inside was her jewelry box, and taped to the underside of the velvet lining was a small brass key with a tag. "Storage Unit 214, Pine Street." I stared at that little piece of metal for a full minute. My mother had never mentioned a storage unit. Neither had Marlene. I told myself it was probably empty, probably forgotten, but I didn't sleep that night, and by morning I was in my car driving to Pine Street with my heart beating somewhere near my throat. The unit was small, the size of a walk-in closet. Inside was a single filing cabinet, and inside the cabinet was a folder, and inside the folder was a letter from a life insurance company. "We are pleased to enclose a check for $180,000, it read, "payable to the estate of Lydia Vance." Dated 2 weeks after my mother's funeral. My mother's name was on the envelope. The payout was sent to a bank account listed under Marlene's name, an account I'd never seen, with a forged signature that was supposed to be mine. I read the letter 5 times. Then I sat on the cold concrete floor and sobbed so hard the edges of the paper got wet. I almost called Marlene that night. I had my phone in my hand, her number pulled up, and I almost screamed at her. But something stopped me. Because screaming wouldn't get my money back. Screaming would just give her time to spin a new story, to tell everyone I was unstable, or greedy, or confused. I knew Marlene. What she valued more than anything was the image of herself as the generous, long-suffering aunt who'd stepped up when tragedy struck. And I realized, sitting there in the dark, that she'd handed me the perfect stage to take that image apart. She had already announced a memorial dinner, 10 years since my mother's passing, a beautiful catered affair to honor her memory and celebrate family. 30 relatives, close friends, the people she most wanted to impress. That was the night the truth would come out. So, here's my question to you. If you found out your own aunt stole $180,000 from your dead mother and let you struggle for 12 years while she remodeled her kitchen, would you confront her privately? Or would you do what I was about to do? Comment private or public, then watch what happened. The memorial was held at a rented event space. White linens, candles, a large framed photograph of my mother on an easel near the podium. Everyone was dressed in respectful grays and blacks, clutching glasses of wine and murmuring about how much they missed her. I wore a simple navy dress and stood near the back. The insurance statement was folded in the pocket of my jacket, along with a photocopy of the bank deposit slip and the forged signature page. 3 months of investigation, compressed into 3 pieces of paper. My heart was pounding so hard I thought someone might hear it over the ambient music. Marlene took the microphone at 7:30 p.m. She looked beautiful, in a dove-gray blazer, her hair swept up, her smile sad and brave. "My sister Lydia was the light of our family," she began, her voice breaking on cue. "She loved harder than anyone I've ever known. And when she got sick, I made her a promise. I would take care of everything." She paused, pressed a tissue to her eye. She had nothing left at the end. The bills were crushing. But I gave her my word, and I kept it. The room sighed. Someone clinked a glass. My cousin Darren, Marlene's son, was sitting in the second row, looking down at his plate. I stood up. I didn't stomp. I didn't scream. I just walked quietly to the front of the room and turned to face 30 people who thought they knew exactly who my aunt was. Marlene looked at me, confused, a flicker of something cold passing behind her eyes before the performance mask slipped back on. "Celeste, sweetheart, what are you doing?" I pulled the insurance statement from my pocket and opened it. "I'm finishing your speech, Aunt Marlene." I read the letter aloud. Every word. The policy number. The payout amount. The date, 2 weeks after my mother's funeral. The forged signature that was supposed to be mine. The bank account in Marlene's name. I held up the photocopy of the deposit slip. I said, "My mother didn't die with nothing. She died with $180,000 that was meant for me. And my aunt stole every dollar." The room went dead silent. Not a whisper. Not a clink of a glass. Just the hum of the refrigerator in the catering kitchen and the soft, horrified sound of someone's breath catching. I let the silence hang. 5 seconds. 10. I wanted them to feel the weight of 12 years of lies settling over that room like a fog. Marlene's face had gone white, then red, then something in between. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish on a dock. And then my cousin Darren stood up. For one awful second, I thought he was going to defend her. But he looked at his mother and said, in a voice so quiet I barely caught it, "Mom, what did you do?" He turned to me. "Celeste, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, but I should have." He told the room that for years his mother had been paying cash for things, the remodel, the car, the cruise, and whenever he asked where the money came from, she'd say investments. He'd never pushed. He'd never connected the timing. And then he said the thing that broke me open. "I remember your mom. She used to talk about the insurance policy at family dinners. She said it was the one thing she could leave you, the one thing no one could take." He turned to Marlene. "You took it." I didn't cry in that room. I waited until I was in my car, parked 3 blocks away, clutching the steering wheel with both hands, before the sobs came. Deep, ugly, full-body sobs that left me breathless. Not from sadness, from the sheer, overwhelming relief of being believed. There's still one thing I don't understand, though. Darren mentioned a second account when he spoke, a safety deposit box he'd once seen a key for, one his mother never explained. I haven't found it yet, and I haven't decided whether I'm going to look. But that's a story for another night. The aftermath was swift. I filed a civil fraud complaint with the help of a legal aid clinic. I didn't press criminal charges. Marlene is old, and prison wasn't what I wanted, but I made sure the settlement agreement was airtight. She had to sell the house with the remodeled kitchen and pay me back every dollar she could. It wasn't the full $180,000. Some of it was gone, spent on things that can't be returned, cruises, furniture, a life built on a lie. But enough came back that I could finally breathe. I used part of it to go back to school. I'm studying to be a paralegal now. The woman whose signature was forged is learning how to read the fine print so no one ever does it again. I didn't yell at Marlene. I didn't call her names. I simply told her at a family meeting, with Darren present as a witness, "You took my mother's last gift to me. You told me I wasn't worth protecting. You were wrong. I'm done letting you write my story." I hung my mother's photograph in my new apartment, next to a framed copy of the insurance letter. Every morning, I look at those two things and remind myself, I am not the girl who believed the lie. I am the woman who held up the paper and told the truth. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you, if you've ever held a piece of paper that changed everything and felt your hands shake so hard you thought you'd drop it, you already know this feeling. Type "I'm free" in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're not subscribed yet, ask yourself if you really want to miss the next time the truth catches up. Because that's what we do here. Every story, every night. Hit subscribe and welcome to Midnight Drama Stories.